Welcome back to Found in Translation, the talk show that stacks truth about politics and today's hottest issues. This show's Ray Collazo on a very special day, very special episode. I want to thank all of us for joining on the birthday edition of Found in Translation. For me, of course, I'm humbled to say the next few days I'll be celebrating a milestone birthday. So on this very special edition of Found in Translation, I think TLC said it best. What about your friends? Will they be around? Will they let you down? Indeed, my friends stick with me. My ride or dies are here. And we're going to have a rolling set of friends join us to talk about whatever they want to talk about, again, on this very special edition show. And, of course, one of the guys always riding shoddy with me, one of my producer, and one of my compadres, Elbert Garcia. Elby, what a special day today.
It's a special day, man. It's a special day, but we're always here for you, Ray. When you say the word, we hop on, and that's the way we do it. And you got people calling in from, hopping in on the way to airports and everything. But they wanted to make sure that you were there.
We have people, when I tell people are listening and watching all over the country, all over the world. No, it's my birthday's in a couple days, and I didn't. There are a few political things, and it's depending on what guests jumps on, we'll give you a few comments. I had some thoughts about the 2019 elections from a few days ago and a few other things, but I really wanted to take this opportunity out of gratefulness to bring on as many friends as possible, because many of you know me from a part of my life, whether it's my Columbia University crowd, my growing up North Philly crowd, my Chicago life phase of my life, my Miami phase of my life, my DC phase of my life, with different organizations, different movements that I've been honored to be a part of, institutions. And, this newer podcast, social media part of my life. And I just one of the things I love to do is try to bring it all together on some level. And that happens a lot of times. And Jorge Martinez has been a part of that through the podcast journey. But, so I just wanted to have an opportunity to share all these people in a different kind of way and let them talk about what they want to talk about, where they want to.
Man, I'm thinking through here. I had a couple of things, but then I was like, no, that's overboard. That could kill friendship, marriages.
That could kill children. It could kill marriages. Come on, let's not get crazy. You thought that time Danilo threw me in the shower when I had my clothes on? We can talk about that.
Dude. I think, you know what? It's funny is, have you done podcasts on, it's one thing to love sports, but to take it to that level where you play a card game that's based on baseball, and you're rolling.
Oh yes, brother.
Video game.
See, you're getting nerded out. See, these are my sports nerds. Yeah, Stratomatic. See, this is how deep. See, when people say, "Oh, do you like baseball?" I'm like, let me tell you something. The reason Gone from Dan Patrick, ESPN, came a thing, is the ESPN guys would play Stratomatic, and in the game, there's times where you just have an automatic home run, and he would look up and say, "Gone," and it's the best feeling in the world. So, yes, you want to go how deep I go. Let me say how bad I am for baseball. That in the summer, when things are real slow, I will be watching baseball while playing Stratomatic Solitaire. That's by myself. So I have the teams and I play myself. It's ridiculous. But Solitaire is a wonderful game. You can play it online now, by the way. We had some fun times, though. Right. There was one semester where everyone's grades took a dip because we were playing way too much Stratomatic. There's no question about it.
Yeah, the horrible part was that we were using like a 1992 or 3 or 91 set.
Yeah.
And as a Yankee fan, like that was just like the low point of like having
yes.
Kevin Moss was your best hitter. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun when you. What I like to do is put the teams together. You mix it up with different teams, and I don't know if we ever, if with those cards we were able to pull together a Dominican Republic Puerto Rico battle. I don't know if we had enough pitchers back then. What a surprise! Probably close. I think you may have given me a couple of Venezuelan relievers to even it out or something. But
and then of course the best college experience is that luckily the Phillies have since won a World Series, but nothing was as classic as.
Oh, you got to tell us.
That summer of 93, Rafael Collazo got to watch the Joe Carter game-clinching home run right before a Latino Heritage event.
Oh, my God. I remember that.
A Dominican band was waiting in the lobby area in front of a big...
Was it Ravel?
Was it Ravel?
Yes.
We're getting real Dominican now. I love it. How deep I get.
It was bad. It was bad. It felt like 100 Dominicans high-fiving each other as his Phillies lost and they were celebrating. Like, where else in New York were you going to deal with Toronto winning? Why would New York ever care about Toronto winning?
Well, see, but this is going deep with baseball because before the Red Sox reign became the de facto Dominican team. See, these youngsters don't know about this. Is that the Blue Jays were a big Dominican squad back then because of the George Bell and Tony Fernandez, and as an expansion team.
They almost fielded at 9 players. They almost fielded an entire team of Dominicans before.
Yeah, not that team, but yeah. So they had a historical connection with the Dominican community. Yeah. So, Danilo, share a tale, brother. I mean, you and I got many, but share a tale, bro. Share a memory. Share something.
I want a CocoRico tale. I think I want.
I think that's right, Danilo. So you and I at one point, Danilo, were sort of emerging club promoters in New York City. You know?
That's right. I don't think we were aware of how much that meant for the community because people were always looking to party.
You're absolutely right.
Colombia. And we, man, thinking about it, we could have parlayed that a little bit further.
Well, John Gungie Rivera, who got to give him props, he's still in the game. I recall that we threw a party. It was actually for you talk about full circle. It was for my birthday.
That's right.
It was for my 21st birthday. And in fact, was it at the China Club we threw that party, Danny? Elby's smiling because he's a character in this story.
Wait, I gotta go.
No, because I just want to put the context, right? Because people have to understand the context, right? This is the early 90s, right?
Hottest
this is at the same time.
This is at the club.
And this is at the same time, too, that, it's only a couple of years removed from Sean Puffy Combs doing stuff at CUNY, right? Like, Diddy's, at CUNY doing promotion stuff. Everyone seemed like they had a promoter here.
So hanging out at Barnard. Remember that?
So I'm just saying that. Hang out? I just want to kind of paint the picture that CocoRico was still... Like that was part of a tradition of a bunch of folks, in different places in college in New York City. So I thought it was important for people to understand that.
First of all, I almost tear because this is the first time I've had my 3 Dominican padres on the show at the same time. This is a beautiful moment on a personal level. But let's get deep on this. It's early 90s in New York, right? No, you're absolutely right, LB. I'm glad you said that because we went to school with Lauryn Hill. We saw them on the first videos of the Fugees live, watching her do it, right? Yeah. A lot of hip hop stars. Jorge was one of the managers at the rec center. Who did you bring in there, Jorge?
I will never
break down the names for people.
I'll never forget that I was just a low level schmuck at that point. But it was my freshman year. I went to a concert and I was like, oh, it's Brand Nubians. Woo! I went to see the Brand Nubians, but Grand Poobah had just left the group, so I was like, oh, that's disappointing. And then there was this other group on there, and I was behind the times. I was like, who is these people? And then they performed, and I was like, yo, I got to get this album. Who are these people? I never liked the West Coast group before in my life. It was Cypress Hill. Like, Cypress Hill performed live. Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
Oh, my God. And then remember that's right, Stretch Your Body. That's right. That's right. So, like, literally those famous Big L, Jay-Z freestyles were happening, like, upstairs, and we're downstairs eating chicken wings and playing pool.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's right. And then
I saw the Netflix documentary. It was pretty funny to watch them going through that through the rec center. And I only got to see one dude who I was like, oh, that low life. He got in the documentary because he was always hanging out. But yeah, it was pretty funny to watch that. Yeah,
remember the Tribe. Remember the Tribe concert. Weren't you part of that, Jorge?
Oh my God!
There was a negotiation with the gear. Like there was a thing. Yeah. They made a big thing about making sure Columbia gave him a lot of gear. I remember that.
I remember walking. I also remember walking out. I was just saying. I remember
the best part about that is, and I think it was either Nice and Smooth or when Onyx came.
Well, they were on the same bill. No, it was the same show.
They were. There's this one girl from my year, Asian girl, was always hanging out with them, walking, talking to them. And I was like, she's always was down with the brothers, and then fast forward like 10 years later, I'm watching like VH1, like Best of the Week. I'm like, oh, Miss Info. Oh, wait a minute, Minya is Miss Info. I went to school with Miss Info. I didn't even know that. Like,
oh my God, dude, Max Kellerman. Oh my God, he like haunts me. No, the thing is, people always, and I tell this story. You guys remember this? He used to do the boxing show at Columbia, right? And so he used to stand this close. He was close, like this close to the screen, and he used to always talk shit about Tito Trinidad. And I was like, and I'd see him. I'd grit him up at the lunch, at the at the Keith Murray, Luis, at the lunch hall, and it's like, and then he became a rapper. Remember this? I know Danilo was like, yo, that white boy rap too. And Joe Pabon, oh my God, it's so many. So in the context of this, we're these like kids from the hood that are like trying to make our way, and we're rubbing elbows. Our roommates are millionaires. Their families are wealthy people from Greenwich. And then we're like, these hip hop stars are weaving into it. We're throwing parties at the biggest clubs in New York at the time for the Latin scene, so it was a crazy time.
Well, it's interesting because Colombia at that time had a legacy of artists. I mean, go back to Third Base,
That's right. Pete Nice. That's right.
It's interesting that we were there sort of at a time where, hip hop was coming into its own, and we were at the on the front lines of that, and I think it kind of influenced me and my outlook on music and the world. It's interesting that hip hop has taken such a long journey, and looking at where it is now and what we experience, how different that is. It's just interesting juxtaposition.
I mean, I say to this day, I went to a Columbia basketball game, and during halftime, they're playing hip hop, and I'm like, could you imagine when I was here in '92 that somebody would have put a hip hop song over the speakers at a Columbia game? I think people would have freaked out and walked out of the stands. And now it's just commonplace. It's just amazing that how much is. I'm still, by the way, amazed, and you can Mario can speak to it. I'm still amazed that hip hop is as popular as it is 30, 40 years ongoing. Like that's just, I just couldn't imagine it would have lasted this long in this form of popular art form.
Well, but then but to the next part of this that I want to talk about is that how I'm more surprised how reggaeton, which was like almost kind of this funny thing when I went to Puerto Rico in the mid '90s and like 15 guys on a video, has I would argue not only become super popular, but become like another pillar. Spanish language urban music has become another pillar of what we think of as hip hop. And I think a lot of times other people, and even in our community, we try to separate it. And even like English speaking older hip hop heads do. But I don't think that's really the case. And I don't think this real young generation see it that way. And so, but to that point, so the other part of the equation here are culturally, artistically, musically is, so we're all kids, North Philly, urban America, Northeast, urban Caribbean, Latino kids in the hip hop. And then this is sort of, kind of the time where freestyle's waning to my demise, to my sadness. But then when I got to New York, Jorge Martinez was a freestyle DJ. But anyway, that's another story.
Yes.
But then
freestyle station, not
she was the overnight freestyle person.
Yes.
So then, but this time, two things are happening from a Latino perspective. One is Salsa is about to enter its last like Nuyorican wave. There's still South American stuff, and I'm not saying Salsa doesn't exist, but there's been other good eras of other music, but not really Nuyorican stuff or New York Latino stuff. So the Marc Anthony, Tito Nieves, La India, RMM, Sergio George, like that's happening. So we were fortunate enough to be there when we got like the last good shot of New York Salsa, basically, right? The last strong era. And then this is also a time when, to you guys, Merengue is starting to pop. So we kind of had a fusion of like, it was a golden era of hip hop culture. It was the last good era of New York salsa. And it was when Dominican music and Dominican artists started to take hold in New York.
Yeah. Can we talk about bachata there for a second?
Well, let's talk about it because that's very early on.
Now, is bachata
very, very.
Because back then, bachata wasn't popping. You were the only one that liked it back then. Jorge wasn't rocking bachata back then.
Well, no. Here's the thing with bachata, and I've always said it, is that the crazy thing about bachata is that was for somebody who was going to be in an after hours club where there was like, other stuff going on. Like that is bachata is something that I grew up in. My family grew up in the campos of DR, not the city, not the capital. People in the capital would not play bachata. That's like beneath them. Yeah. That was music that was beneath them. That's for common folk. that is not their type of music. It is amazing where bachata's been, and that it has actually put merengue to its deathbed. Like, right, like you don't hear, not that you don't hear new artists because merengue has overtaken it. And it's funny because my generation almost fought it. Like, I remember we actually made fun of Aventura when they first came out. And my nephew is a millennial. He's like 30. And he went to a concert and he turned to me, he's like, look, uncle, look, Theo. Aventura is the reason why we listen to Spanish music. My generation listens to Spanish music because Aventura came. Like, they brought this New York hip-hop style and merged it with bachata. And now and because of that, my generation now listens to Spanish music. So he kind of shut me down on don't make fun of them. They're the reason why we now listen to Spanish music. And now they listen to merengue and salsa, some other stuff. But they were these Bronx, whatever, New York kids who bridged that gap for them. While us old schools were like, because we're not
that old. Isn't it crazy though? How the culture evolves is so dynamic. You know?
Because I went to the Copa, right? And there was a wall, right? The front side was Spanish music. The back side was English music. You know, I like mayo and I like ketchup, but I don't like the mix. Like, it was two distinct things for me. I would go to a merengue salsa club and I would go to hip hop club, but I would never think of like bringing the two together. I mean, you know, we were there, man. I remember Vico C. You know, remember Vico C, back the Puerto Rican dude? That was the 80s, right? He was trying to rap.
Leo Prieto was just hanging out with Mellow Man Ace.
And they would just
by the way.
But that merge, I mean, Danilo can speak to it more, but that merge happened. Some of us fought it. We were like, oh, this is just garbage. But that's because we didn't understand it. For a whole generation, they brought that Spanish culture to them because they fought it, right? They were like, I grew up in the U.S. I don't like to speak Spanish. I don't like Spanish music. And then bachata came. Bachata, reggaeton, and they just brought this whole like hip hop vibe. Oh, and we're speaking Spanish too, so you might as well learn Spanish too. It's crazy culturally how those things emerged, and it brought this whole generation around.
I remember literally Danilo introduced me to the genre. I remember going to his dorm room in Carmen, our freshman dorm, and he had a poster of a merengue of a bachata group, I believe, and I was like, dude, I'm sorry, I know merengue, but what is that? And he was like, that's bachata, cibao, that's popping where my fam's from. And I'm like, and to think, Danilo, and by then, merengue was huge in New York and huge in the Latino mainstream at that point. Mm-hmm. But it never got as big as bachata got now with Jorge's generation.
Well, it was going through that evolution, right, at that period. So Antony Santos was like the first one that sort of broke out of that bachata ghetto, right? Before it was like Luis Segura and Luis Varga and like a whole bunch of guys that have been like doing that music for forever, but in like the Dominican bars where, you know, it was all about like, you know, trying to get with somebody or trying to drown your sorrows. So it was like Dominican blues, right? So he sort of broke out that genre into like danceable music because he made it into sort of like a merengue type of thing. He made it less raunchy, more appealing to the masses, and then it took off from there.
Yeah, you know, there's a really good book. There's a professor out there, Deborah Passini or something like that, that wrote a really good book about that in terms of as a social history, right? In terms of bachata in terms of going from almost kind of being like the blues, you know, as Jorge said, right? Like the blues of DR and going and literally from being an outcast, you know, being outcast music, quote unquote, and then like kind of rising above, right? So, but yeah, man, that's what the 90s, but that's the thing. Think about it. Like, we're blessed. In the 90s, you had all these things. You had bachata bubbling up. You had hip hop still kind of leaving from, you know, like, you know, to the golden era to like a new kind of thing. I mean, the 90s were a real interesting thing of music. And then you have this whole like rebirth of salsa also going on, right? Like taking the cue from the freestyle era, right? To, you know, and those freestyle folks going out to be salseros, you know, like, you know, I mean, you know, Marc Anthony's big now, but we were, remember that?
What happened?
I said Marc Anthony, India. These are all freestyle people.
George Lamont
drop the song. You know, like all these freestyle people. Yeah, it's crazy.
Stevie George, the producer, all those things, like all those cats, right? Like all those cats kind of do it that way. So I mean, it's amazing to blink, right? But this is the music of our era, right?
Yeah, because it went from salsa merengue to really, then really became bachata reggaeton, and now it's bachata. I mean, it's bachata still popping, maybe just probably peaked, and then now it's if for people paying real attention, it's reggaeton and Latin trap, which is a whole other head spinner. But it's incredibly big and it's incredibly mainstream.
Well, that's the big thing is they've become so mainstream, and that's why I bring up the whole U.S. Latino culture. Like they did it, and that's why I give credit to like the Aventura and then some of these other groups is like they took it out of just their community. And yeah, like you've talked about it, you've posted about it. When you see Bad Bunny on the Macy's Day Parade, you're like, what the heck?
I know.
What just happened here? Like, that's just like unheard of.
No, and the thing is, it's not like one or two people. It's like, I mean, it's a very deep genre, unlike freestyle. I mean, there's like, me and my brother Mike talk about this with the ticket stuff. There's 25, 30, 40 Puerto Rican guys from Puerto Rico that have millions of followers, that are global guys making a lot of money. That doesn't include the Colombians now. And of course, we got a few Dominicans, we got people South America. I mean, there's this kid, what's his name? Paulo Londra. You ever see this kid, Danny? This kid, he's Argentinian kid. Look him up. He's basically like a very middle class, very white, suburban Argentinian kid. And so he like does reggaeton Latin trap like as a cornball, but he's got a big market because there's a lot of kids like him. So he's like, and he's doing stuff with Becky G and like, like it's just there's so much there's so much. It's so dynamic, and because of this the world's gotten so small. And I tell, especially my Dominicans, like, you go out west, we can't as Caribbean Latinos, unless you go to the West Coast, you can't appreciate how big. Romeo Santos, I think for 5-6 years was the biggest star in the Southwest. Period, Latino music star. And Bachata and these reggaeton cats and Osuna and these guys, I mean, they're popping it, man. They're popping it. So, Luis, let's talk about one of your other passions for a minute, because we got two guys here to have intricate perspectives on it. The reason my kids play soccer is because of Luis. Because when we started working together, I shared my passion, which is very cultural, for baseball.
Baseball, I know.
And you can't get a bigger soccer Latino than my man, Luis. And I learned more about the Honduran national team and La Liga and really what soccer means to your community culturally. It meant a lot. Man. So we got two people here that later in life got into soccer, and they can share their perspective on it. But Luis, tell us what soccer means to you and what soccer means to the Latino community in Miami.
Well, the community, soccer for the Latino community, for my country especially, it's everything. It's like a religion, and I think it's true for most of Latin America, like people like guys like Pelé or Maradona were considered gods, living gods. Whether you like Maradona or not, politically speaking, but he was a great, soccer player in his time. And Pelé, Pelé, he's the king, or Rey Pelé. So, and then for every Latin American, the first, as soon as you start working, the first thing you do is start kicking a ball, like you guys do in the Caribbean, right? With, playing baseball. But we do it in Latin America, and for us, it's everything. It's like, it's more than a sport, to be honest with you. And when our national teams, play, our countries just stop. Everything stops, and we just watch the game.
So we got somebody. Danny, you still work in the business, don't you?
I'm still at MLS. Yeah.
Okay, so Luis, we have someone that works for MLS here. So
real, wow,
yeah. So
we're so excited in Miami that we're gonna have a team finally.
I know.
Yeah. So are you going down there to kick off the squad, Danny, at some point?
I'll be there probably in February.
Oh,
nice.
January, February.
Very nice.
Which, by the way, they will be. I think that they will still be like deciding, right, whether the stadium is going to be built here at the golf court.
The permanent stadium. Yeah, they're going to have the temporary stadium in Fort Lauderdale, so that's where the games are going to be played. That's coming along, but So it's still up in the air with the permanent.
Yeah, they're still deciding because they think, a lot of the people here think that it's not a good deal for the city. But I have to say that I'm thinking more like a fan, and I'm dying for the stadium to be built there because it's like literally like 8 minutes away from my house. So
that's a nice good for you. Danny, soccer is bigger and better in America than ever before, brother.
Never, yeah.
It is, and it's growing, and in large part due to the Latino population here in the country.
Yeah,
and you look at the supporters, you look at the fan base in MLS, and the foundation of it is Latino. Look at LAFC with their supporter section. You look everywhere, Red Bulls, it has that definite Latino element. We're getting a lot of players from Latin America, which is improving the quality of play for the league. So, the league has a huge debt to the Latino community in that it's really, not only a growing population within the country, but a population that's definitely supporting the sport in the country. So, for that, it's great to see that. We had a tournament, Leagues Cup, where we had Mexican teams and MLS teams, Liga MX teams and MLS teams play in a tournament, and the final was in Las Vegas. So I was in Las Vegas with for the match, the pre-match conference, and it was, both the teams that made it to the final were both Liga MX team, but there was MLS representation at the table, and everybody that worked for MLS was able to conduct that meeting entirely in Spanish because everybody spoke Spanish. So that's just a testament to how our culture is sort of pervasive in this sport and is really driving the sport in this country. So
yeah,
it's really good to see.
It's interesting because just following it as a fan, and someone that very curious about the development of the sport in the country as much as the game itself, is that, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, Danny, but I'll say it as just an outside person. The MLS league and the independent teams really struggled for a while with how to satisfy these two masters, which was, the sort of what they thought was going to be their core audience was basically white suburban America, soccer moms, and people that people are putting out money for tickets and leagues. But then on the other side of it, the Latino, more urban, working class fan base, which is the ones that are going to bring the energy, bring the excitement, bring the loyalty, more people. So, and that was an issue with where, to Luis's point, where stadiums are put and how teams are marketed. And I just think the numbers have just overwhelmed, I think we've kind of, like in other things in the culture, just sort of overwhelmed the argument anyway. So it's going to happen, right? So, Jorge, you're a big sports guy, and you become a fan of soccer over the years. And I think you and he are similar in that we're fascinated by the sport on a lot of levels.
I am. And I was actually going to ask Danny of, how is the MLS dealing with the fact, though, that the other major European markets have leagues have started to penetrate the U.S., right? Like, I can wake up every Saturday or Sunday morning, and I got 4 or 5 Premier League games on. Now, and I can watch La Liga games. Before it was I had to hunt and peck on the internet to find some of this stuff. Now I'm just bombarded with it. And now even with the Premier League, you have Christian Pulisic playing for Chelsea. So now you have a big American star who's actually making a little noise now in Europe. Is that helping MLS by attracting more people to soccer? Or do you feel that's a little bit of a competition? Because that definitely, the other leagues are all over the place. They see the U.S. as a market to expand, and you can see how they're trying to get there. It's amazing how much European soccer, you can even tell because I'm watching an ESPN football game, regular American football game, and I'm getting updates on the latest happenings in the Champions League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and I think there are a couple of things that we've done it's definitely something that we have to deal with as a league. Obviously we can't afford to pay our top flight players the same as some European team can. So you're seeing people like Alphonso Davies, who's Canadian, but people like Pulisic going out there to Europe and doing well and making an impact. But I think that's going to be a positive thing for the international market to kind of see that Americans are being able to compete on an international level, which is at the end of the day good for the league. We do sort of counter program our season to not compete with the likes of the Premier League. I mean, we start in March, where everybody else kind of starts in August. So we have 6 months. I mean, they're playing a couple of months, March to May, and then we have the summer where we play. It's just our league, and then August picks back up. So we have a few months where we're not really competing with other leagues. It's a very we have our broadcast rights, and those rights are going to be renewed in the next couple of years. So we'll see what distribution we can get. But it's a very fan driven and localized market. It's more like baseball than football or basketball. The local markets really play big into the revenue generation and the fan development and things like that. So, in a sense, we're growing more like baseball than we are like any of the other American sports. So, it's working. It's working. We still do the designated player, bring in the Ibrahimoviches of the world, the Wayne Rooneys of the world, to kind of give you that international spotlight, or the spotlight with the international brand name. So it's sort of a mix of things. So it's working.
And then the fact that it's a sellers league, actually, Almiron, right? A couple of the prominent players that's during the transfer market, but I think it's showing that there's some talent in the league. So it's some good stuff. Luis, jump in this conversation. Luis, let me ask you a question. Como hondureño en Miami.
Yeah.
With the Latin American soccer, it's so diverse now because you have the South Americans, your Central Americans, but
the Caribbeans,
but I'm talking about for the hardcore. Well, that's true. The Jamaicans and the Haitian stuff.
Jamaicans,
is that so? Is what's the most? Are people following La Liga en España? Are they following wherever Ronaldo plays? Are they following Latin American soccer, whether it's Argentina, Colombia, right? The MLS. So how does? There's so much. There's the national teams, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Latino community will follow soccer wherever they see a game from a good league, right? And typically they will watch La Liga and the Premier League. That's always something that we in Latin America we have seen. Even though we have our own leagues, smaller, bigger leagues, people still watch these leagues, and people would eventually become a fan of a certain team if they have someone from their country playing in that specific league, right? But that sort of competition, our own countries always had it. They always had like the soccer or football from Europe and South America. But I think that this is good in a way because it also gives people an option and see how soccer and football is being played at that level. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people won't stop watching soccer on their own local leagues. However, what's happening in America, particularly in some countries where violence have become a big problem, people are staying away of the stadiums, not because they're watching La Liga or the Premier League. They stopped going to games in their countries because of the violence. But that's about it.
Interesting.
So Ray, I want to ask our fellow colleague a theoretical question, jumping on a certain text that we had going on, because I see this happens to a lot of Mexican stars these days. So theoretically, if you had a son and he was good at soccer, son's born here in the U.S., wanted to play for the Honduran national team or for the U.S. national team?
That's a good one.
Well, we have had a few cases already. There was one actually, I think it was last year, the guy, I think that he was born here in the U.S. He played some games with not with the major national team, right? Not the main team, but he played under. I think he played like under 20. He played like a couple of games. Now, when he was called to play for the national team for the big, for the main team, he said no because eventually, according to the FIFA laws, if a player from another, has like dual nationality, right? Yeah. And if as long as can play in the national given national team, as long as if that player has not played with the main team. Which means that if you play for the under 20, under 17, whatever, doesn't count. So he's expected to be called. I don't think he's going to make it. To be honest with you, he's not that good. So, but that's just one of the cases that I can remember. I can't remember the name of the player right now, but I want to make it personal. So, what would you do though if you had a son? What would you push him? Because I know some kids where the parent has basically said, "I want you to play for the Mexican team because that's who I root for." And it's a hard, it's funny because it's kind of
Hondurans can use those top stars. Keep it real.
It's
you don't
hard
want to lose any talent.
But that's okay.
Yeah,
it's that feeling of like you're American, and you never stop being American. But there's this little part of you when it comes to sports where it's like you love this sport because of this country. So it's kind of like it's kind of like that whole A-Rod where he decided to play for the American.
How many times did we debate that one, Jorge? For a decade, we debated that one.
That is the hardest thing because you feel like you're betraying your country, but at the same time, you feel like you're betraying the country that taught you, that gave you the love of the sport. So it's this conundrum of like, what do I do? I love my country, but I also love the place that gave me this passion. It's the hardest thing I can imagine. I never had it. I don't have the talent, but it's the craziest thing to think of.
Well, if I was me, like I would be in a really tough situation. At the end of the day, I'm just going to leave it to my son. If he would be a soccer player, for me, my choice would be like play for Honduran national team, right? Because I was born and raised there. But that would be asking too much from my son. It would be a decision that he will have to make eventually, But it's a tough one.
Is Leo there, or we're just seeing his living room, Elbert?
He pops in and out.
There he is. There he is.
Leo. I've been waiting to get on, player.
All right, brother. We had to get local Leo in here. Leo, bring some comic relief. Turn your phone and talk to us, brother. So this is what I want Leo to do as we wrap this up. Leo.
Love it.
You're perfect, Leo. So, Leo, this is what we need to do. Leo Prieto, one of the voices of Tico Sports, Kansas City Chiefs football, Spanish language radio broadcaster among many titles. One of my dear homies, one of my Mexican brothers. Leo, this is what I want you to do. So you got my Dominican homies on here. How many times I've talked about these brothers to you.
Yes.
Our dear Honduran brother, our Central American brother, represents for the Latin American flavor. But I want these vatos here to understand how I get down with my Mexican homies, my Mexican peoples all over the Midwest, Southwest, Vegas, San Diego. No importa, we get it in. Talk to them, Leo.
Hey, no, Ralph, first and foremost, feliz cumpleaños.
Woo! Thank you.
My Puerto Rican brother, man. The first, the only, the man, the myth, the legend. Rafael, it's an honor to be on today. Thank you, man. And yeah, bro, I mean, I'm just listening to the dialogue, whether it's politics, whether it's immigration, whether it's MLS, here.
He's on mute. I
cannot
cannot
hear.
hear.
A great year this year with Sporting KC, but that's kind of where I got my start as well. Fresh out of law school was Sporting KC and kind of seeing people come up. And so
there you go.
Yeah, I'm a little biased because soy Mexicano. So I think every team should have like a chicharito, and that'll get you some fans and some high scoring games. So we got plenty of stories, Ralph. I ain't going forever.
Well, I know you can, but I mean, but something appropriate for this platform would be nice. But no, I mean, look, you and Rudy and the Chicago crowd, another big part of my life. Dr. Andrade brought us all together. Ernesto,
that's true.
I mean, so many names, but Martha, so many people. We could say it all day. Eddie, Mike, all them people. But hey, man, you're in Kansas City, Midwest flavor. I mean, Mahomes coming back, I guess someday. But talk to people, man. Just give people a flavor where you're at, man. You just came back from Vegas, so give us a Leo update for people.
Okay, yeah. So we had I was in Vegas for the first ever Fantasma USA, which basically was Dia de los Muertos / Spanish rock / Latino Comic Con weekend in Vegas, if you can imagine that. So we had a great time, man. And Ralph, you'd be proud, man. I actually served as a little backup dancer for the one and only Mellow Man Ace. So that was fun.
That's hilarious.
Hanging out with like the Mexican Tony Stark, Brooklyn St. Patrick's. I mean, it was a hot spot. It was cool. The Canelo fight was going on. Nate Diaz was fighting. Vegas. We spent a couple nights there in Vegas, Ralph.
Yeah,
you and I
two.
with USHLI,
Yes.
getting the vote out. But no, that was good. That was great. Came back to reality here. Got to do a budget for my day job. But now all is gravy, man. Ready for this weekend. And then next weekend I fly out to Mexico City for the game. And by then Mahomes should be playing. And I think Raza will welcome him with open arms. And can't wait. I'm gonna have to do some podcasts from there. So stay tuned.
Well, you always welcome, brother, to chime in from there. Those Mexico City games have been really successful in terms of the fan base and tourism. It's been a nice boom. So, LB, help us wrap this up, brother. I know this is, hey, bro, first of all, I mean, from all the corners of my life, this has been so wonderful. I just wish more of the ladies had jumped in, but there'll be other times for that.
We're gonna have to do a special ladies episode, I guess.
Yeah, well, they usually dominate. To be fair, they usually dominate the show. It's actually the opposite problem, trying to get guys to come on the show. But LB, man, just reflect on this last hour and a half. It's been a great conversation with some real positive people. No,
it's been a really great conversation, and it's always great to hear all these folks that Ray talks about. In good ways and say, I was just talking to Leo, I was talking to Luis, I was talking to, Danilo. And so to get everyone on it at the same time, I think it's been good. And that's the power of you, that's the power of you, Ray, and you bring us all together in a lot of different ways. You're always grinding, always trying to kind of figure this out, to share kind of a small story. I mean, I decided, so Ray and I have traveled a bit. Ray helps me out a lot. My brother lives in Germany. So in a lot of ways, I depend on folks like Danilo and Ray, because they are my brothers over here. I am wearing a shirt, Ray. You may not remember this, but we went a long time ago, I think back up to Syracuse. Do you remember that, Ray? This was years ago.
I remember that you shared with me after we ran the car and almost got into a car accident around 110 in Amsterdam.
Right, that's
right. You had a license. We hadn't driven in quite some time.
Yeah, so, that was, and my brother was
a harrowing trip on the icy streets of upstate New York.
Yeah, we almost got shot because I cut somebody off. That's definitely another story.
And then Nelson did a fake jaunt with his. Oh my! It was a 50-50.
Shout out to my brother Nelson.
We're live
that day.
We're live to tell the tale.
Yeah, no. I mean, if everyone remembers that scene in Godfather where Al Pacino is outside the hospital and they tell him to put his hand in the gun to make sure believe that he has a gun. Pretty much that's what Nelson did, right? Instead pulled out his thing. But Nelson was
a very angry looking West African gentleman, yes. With a lot of
but we survived, and we survived that. But I got to the place, and Ray actually, I didn't have a shirt, literally. I didn't have a blue shirt. I am wearing the shirt that Ray gave me that day.
Are you serious? That's
right? It's got a couple of buttons. It's got a couple of buttons still missing, but I still keep it as a good luck shirt and a good luck trap. So I want to say, so this is physical evidence that Ray will literally give you the shirt off of his back. The shirt off of his back. Literally, right? That also goes to show you I tend to keep everything, so I am a little bit of a pack rat, but that being said, I still can also fit into this shirt, which is pretty amazing too after all those years. So the shirt means a lot. But anyway, literally, like Ray, you've done a lot for me. I started my own podcast, Dominicans Podcast, Que Lo Que.
You got to promote this, Luis, with your Dominicans, Que Lo Que podcast.
And so I started a couple of weeks ago. Ray's been really, really good at helping me out. It's a lot harder to produce a show by yourself. And so Ray, you've always been friends. Claro. Because well, we have to catch up anyway. We haven't caught up in a while.
Definitely.
But Ray's been you've been real instrumental, I think, to all of us. I think you continue to be instrumental to a whole bunch of people. And look, I mean, we all came out because we feel like you deserve lots of things and lots of blessings on your birthday. You mean a lot to us, and we want to make sure that you also continue to succeed and continue to have a good life too. So.
And I appreciate you, brother. And I appreciate all you guys individually and collectively. I know Jorge's going to throw up after this because he wanted a roast. He wanted a bashing.
We'll have the roast. We will.
We actually need, maybe that's like an end of the year special.
Definitely.
And we'll line up We'll line up and I'll just.
But we just need to put an MA on that show. Put a warning label before the show starts.
Well, I'm not worried about vulgarity. Look, on some level, people understand. We all had lives. You know what I'm saying? We all had lives. You know, a long time ago.
Maybe we should have people register for that one, so that way they can just do a special video.
There's always spies, LB. There's always spies, dog.
What happens in Vegas doesn't necessarily stay in Vegas.
No, well, Leo and I are stretching that theory. We're stretching that theory. Leo, saludo mexicano en español, brother. I want to hear some Chihuahua Spanish from you. Un saludo español real quick before we let you go there. Luis, I want you to break it down when we wrap this up.
No, ¿quieren un grito o qué? Porque mira, el 18 de noviembre estamos en vivo del Estadio Azteca, ¿ok? Para que vayan. Viva México, viva los Chiefs. Ahí nos vemos.
Woo! I love it. Luis, un saludo a la gente de Latinoamérica, a la gente que habla español, la fanaticada de usted, hermano. Un saludo, Luis.
Oh, I think we got him on mute. Oh.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
You got it, Luis.
Sí, claro.
Sí.
Bueno, un saludo para toda mi gente latina. Los latinos unidos jamás serán vencidos y perdonamos, pero nunca olvidamos. Así es que para adelante siempre, para arriba.
Gracias, hermanito. Thank you guys so much. Nothing better than a birthday. Just spend some time, wonderful friends. The modern technology brings us together. I know one of my 2020 New Year's resolutions to see you guys more, especially my East Coast brothers. We all get so busy, and you guys mean so much to me. And all the people watching and listening, there were some people that tried to get on, and we got busy. I think they may have been a little intimidated by all this great conversation. And but you guys mean so much to me, and I didn't. And that's why I do this, because this is LB. You hit on it. This is the thing I love to do the most, is bring all these wonderful people together, have these conversations, and if I inspire people and entertain people a little bit, along the way, then that's even better. So appreciate you. Continue to listen and watch Found in Translation on WPPM LP 106.5 in Philadelphia. The podcast, YouTube channel. We're moving on up. Support the Que Lo Que podcast. And just individually support all these brothers and all they're doing. And we got to continue to do this. And, I want to shout out Edwin Desamore, his message to us about how, especially as Latino men, we need to continue to mentor and lead, because these Latinas are they're working triple time. And I know all y'all are doing what y'all can do, but we need to continue to show that example. So I want to leave us with that message. Thank you all so much for joining Found Translation. And, y'all are my brothers for life. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you, brothers.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ray. Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Play.